Please click the subscribe button and the notification icon. It will help us a lot. Hi guys, this is Rodrigo from Frame Freak Studio, and this is the Creative Hustler Show. Today's guest is Thierry Boulanger, and he's the co-founder, CEO, and creative director of Sabotage Studio, which pretty much was founded back in 2016 in Quebec, and they are looking to create retro-inspired video games that are amazing. They quickly went from having just 3 employees to a team of 16 people working full in many games that capture the compelling nature of the old video games that we love. And to be honest, that has been kind of lost in the new video games, even though the new video games are awesome. The first game was The Messenger, which was inspired on Ninja Gaiden and was launched back in August of 2018, and pretty much was liked by a lot of people. And they even got the award of the best debut indie game of 2018 award in Los Angeles. And even the creators of Ninja Gaiden played the game and loved it. and now pretty much they are working on a new video game that as soon as I saw it, I loved it, because immediately I began to remember a video game that I love a lot. And if the Steam hour counter existed back in the day, then it will show that I have played this game for thousands of hours. I even still have the same game with all the stats maxed out, which is Chrono Trigger. And then I realized why I found this kind of similar, and it's because they even got Yasunori Mitsuda, which is the composer of Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross, the Xenosaga series, and Inazuma 11 to work in this video game and to create the music for the video game. And now they have launched the Sea of Stars in a Kickstarter that was massively successful. They got over 1.62 million Canadian dollars, which is about $1.15 million in the US. And now they are working really hard to launch it. So without any further ado, welcome, Thierry.
Hey, thanks. I'm glad to be here.
So to begin, pretty much, can you tell us a little bit about your story? How did you decide to become a video game developer? What pushed you to follow this path, pretty much?
Well, I mean, as you know, I think like many devs, I've just played so many games as a kid, and it's just the one thing that no matter how much I got older, it's the one thing I always kept going back to, and it used to be the reason why I wouldn't study or why I would skip school, and so eventually I tried to turn that well, not necessarily vice, I never saw it that way, but the generation before me certainly did, and eventually the reason why I wouldn't study and wouldn't do my homework became the reason why I did them, because I wanted to become a dev, basically.
And what is the thing that captures you about the style of the retro games? Because, well, we see like amazing games now that, like God of War and things like that, definitely get us into a vice playing them and are really satisfying to play. But I my guess is that we both feel that there was some kind of magic in the old video games that has been lost, and it's a shame that publishers now are not pursuing this kind of games. So what is it that pretty much you love about it, that you want to keep putting that into the world?
The main thing for me is, well, I mean, for sure it opens up this nostalgia box, right? And the retro signature is a very good way to signal to the people who might be into what you're trying to build, like, hey, look, I get this visual signature, I get this vibe, this amount of frame for animation, this kind of camera and gameplay mechanics, and so it kind of lights that beacon, like, if this is compelling to you, if this brings back memories, then perhaps we made a game for you, Now, that's not to say that we don't enjoy, AAA or modern titles. Like God of War, as you mentioned, is a very good example. We absolutely dig those games as well, but when it comes to actually making them, we're a smaller team, we have a more limited budget, and we just never lost this love for, and at least for me personally, there's just a kind of unique experience that emerges from really harsh limitations, Music is on a shorter loop, graphics are more limited, and so you kind of have to, even in the story and the pacing of everything, you always need to sort of get to the point instantly, and yeah, there's a special kind of experiences that emerge from those limitations, basically, is what we're chasing.
Yeah, and I think like on one side, like it's amazing to kind of get absolute freedom, and that was one of the things that made Assassin's Creed amazing. The fact that
Mm.
it was one of the first games that you could explore literally everything. Like
Yeah.
there was nothing that you couldn't explore there, and
Right.
definitely people got really creative. And then we have like these open world games like
Mm.
Grand Theft Auto 5,
Yeah.
Redemption, and all that. But as you say, like uh, there is also an amazing thing that happens when you are put with a lot of limitations and you have to be creative between
Mm.
those limitations. Uh, so what has been your experience dealing with that on the creative process?
Well, I mean, it's really, I think in a way it's for me as the creative director is the only way that I sort of care to make a game. If the term that or title, if you want, creative director means that I'm doing game design and writing and also just doing direction on the floor of approving everything that gets done and kind of having the final say on what goes into the game or not and what we should be making. Uh, but that's not to say that I think I'm on the same level as say a Corey Barlog who can do that. For on God of War specifically, as you mentioned, with huge team and huge budgets, I don't think I would know what to do in that context. So retro games it's a space that I understand, and from working prior in my career as a lead programmer on I got to gauge different team sizes and which I was comfortable sort of leading, and around 15 was where I thought I felt like that's about as big as I can take and still be confident that I'll be on top of everything that's happening daily on the floor, and then it's from that we just make the best game that we can, and the retro is a natural fit because at the studio it's the kind of games that we love the most dearly, and it also happens to be something we can actually take on with this team size.
Yeah, and this is something that I wanted to explore with you, and one of the reasons why I wanted to interview you is that I had recently this, let's call it like a limiting belief, like a mental barrier,
Hmm.
which I thought that there was so much that you could do with certain number of employees, let's say, but lately I have been able to connect with people and see many examples of very small teams who are creating like
Hmm.
great work, way bigger work than I thought was
Hmm.
possible with the number of people working on them. And one of examples, one of the previous interviews were the guys from Team Cherry in
Yeah.
Australia, and they did this huge game, Hollow Knight,
Yeah.
that, and they were just only 4 people, and one was the musician and one was the marketer. So really, there was just one developer and one
Right.
animator,
Yeah.
and the animator even, in order to save a little bit of money, he did everything in Photoshop. Like he didn't
Mm.
purchase any animation. So now I'm seeing kind of the same with your studio. You have this team of 16 people, but you're doing this amazing work that looks, even though like you're saying like, okay, this is very limited in comparison to the AAA games, but it is still a lot of work. So how did you go about finding out passionate people who have the work ethic and have the talent? Because we also have faced with people who have the talent but don't have the work ethic, and
Mm-hmm.
like if you have the talent but you don't deliver on time, then
Mm-hmm.
what's the point, right? So how
Right.
has been your experience putting together a team of people who are very passionate, very centered to the vision, and who have also a lot of work ethic?
Right. Well, so I've been working in games for, I guess, 13 years now. Yeah, 12 or between 12 and 13, probably 13. And so the first 8 years of my career, I was working as a gameplay programmer. And then I worked up to a lead position where I was managing teams. And so that was in a big studio that was doing work for clients, so say there's a movie coming out, they want a game to go along with it. Yeah, it was smaller games in scope, like Flash games and into mobile games and all of that. And the goal was always to eventually sort of make, the games I would genuinely want to play. But it helped a lot to get experience and to develop this work ethic, because when you work for a client, you got to hit the dates and you got to deal with curveballs, and sometimes the ask isn't really clear and you got to try and map it and figure it out. And so you make a lot of mistakes and you learn a lot, but mostly, and that's more to your question, is you meet people, right, on the production floor. And so you meet animators, you meet, 3D modelers, you meet game designers, you meet, and then you get to talk and you just get to see and who's cut from the same cloth as you, just as a more general philosophy, and who has the same grievances, in that work environment, and who thinks that they're perfectly fine there, and that's good, and that's fine for them, And so it was kind of like everybody was cherry-picked really slowly over time. And because I always kind of had this vision of building this special team to make these projects, and so yeah, it's just through meeting people, and honestly for me it came from friendship. They're all friends, and they've all been for most of them for over 10 years at this point, and it was basically hey, look, if I build it, will you come? If would you be the gameplay coder? Would you be the animator? Would you be the level designer? And so all those people kind of gathered around this idea of being a small team that's highly efficient and that's very focused on building retro experiences, and so Sabotage was we went from 3 to 16 employees, but it wasn't a recruitment effort, almost everyone who's at the studio now knew that they would be when it was founded. It was just a matter of time and figuring out when is the proper timing, when we have the resources, but yeah, we were just all eager to get to work together.
Awesome. And yeah, I think that definitely if I see the trailer of Sea of Stars, the passion shows, like the talent and the passion shows.
All right.
And how was your experience going with Kickstarter? Because lately and honestly, this is only just from what I've seen in the news, but I've seen that Kickstarter as a platform hasn't been doing that well, that they have been losing like 35% of the projects that they got every year, constantly for the last years. So what was the challenges that you faced there, launching a Kickstarter, doing the project over there, and what was your experience?
Well, the main thing for us has been the pandemic, because it was like, wow, can we still launch this? Because we had been planning for a long time. Kickstarter is not, hey, let's do a Kickstarter and the next day it goes live, right? It's months of planning. They say 3 months, about 3 months of work. But for us, starting to think about it and make sure we have everyone that we need, to do a proper video pitch, and then trying to analyzing other campaigns. So we put about 6 months prior, we started really seriously looking at this. Almost daily we had like action items that, as we were working towards that. And so we ended up going ahead with the plan anyway. But the thing for us is with Sea of Stars, we are basically reinvesting what we made with Messenger, because we believe in the team, we believe in the idea, and since the studio was founded, everyone was just eager to get to work on the RPG. Really, we're really excited and happy and proud of Messenger, but we all knew that in the end, the reward was we all get to work together, all 16 of us, on the turn-based RPG. And so the idea of the Kickstarter was we weren't financially dependent on it, but we wanted, so that's why we asked for the amount, when you look at paying for 16 people for 3 years, professional salaries, the amount we ask for is almost nothing in that. But we know that it's figures that they don't make sense for the individual. You can't even ask for even 5% of what it actually costs, to make a game. Doesn't make sense for people, and we understand that. And I feel that as well. If I see a campaign, I'm like, you're asking for like $1 million? Wow, like why don't you just make your game instead? And it's like, even understanding the finances of running a studio, it's like a hard sell. So all we wanted was to ask for a very small portion to validate with potential players and our current fan base that if we committed to this project, there would be people in the end to play it. So we just wanted that safety of, okay, instead of like spending everything we have and then coming out in like 2 years and it's like, oh, no one wants to play this, and it's really obvious for a reason that was lost on us because we were so lost into just talking about the ideas and getting excited about making it. And so we wanted that this validation, this verification with this validation, yeah. And so we got it. That was our real Kickstarter goal there, and so we were really happy in that. Then in terms of a Kickstarter being successful, what we analyzed is, even though perhaps the platform hasn't been doing so well, but it can be for many reasons, and one of them could be that some people look at this really quickly and they're like, oh, we saw a lot of success on there, and we assume it's a low effort. You just put your project up there and then everything happens and it's viral for no reason, so that could explain, like a mob like that usually gathers around, they see something trending and then they try to just do it as well. And so we thought we'll respect this platform and put in as much effort as we believe was probably put in the projects that we saw doing well, because the trend that we saw is that a project that the video pitch is clear and the quality is there, and the idea comes through really clearly with good screenshots, and you understand what it is, the proposition is clear. We haven't seen many that didn't really do well, and then it's just a matter of is the idea endearing or not to the public, so that's up to the public. But so we tried to remove all the objective pitfalls, all the things that if the video isn't good, the lighting isn't good, we try to save here on quality or there, and then the perceived value is so low that people won't want to get involved because you're promising quality, you're presenting your studio, you're presenting your team, and part of getting people need to trust you as a developer, so already having one project that we delivered, so people can go and look at that, they can look at the reviews, and so if we're associated with quality, then maybe that kind of eases the friction, of kind of believing in the studio, because we're aware that we're undertaking more complex systems, right? An RPG compared to a platformer, just on the face of it, it's like, there's a lot that can go wrong if you don't know what you're doing. And so people are trusting us with this increased complexity, and we just feel really blessed in that.
Definitely. And something that I want to ask you in terms of what is going on right now and the lockdown, how has all this situation impacted your studio in the way that you work? Has impacted you at all, or have you been able to adapt quickly to this situation?
Yeah, we basically, what happened is, so we're in Quebec City, Canada, right? And so we kind of got it, sort of late, so we were a bit fortunate in that we really could see it coming, and we weren't hit that hard just even as a country, and so what happened for us is we just transitioned to remote work. And I mean, we're a bunch of gamers, so everyone has their home set up already. Everyone has a headset because they play MMOs or multiplayer games, and then everyone has a good computer because they want to play on Ultra when they boot Cyberpunk in a few months, And so really everyone was kind of already good to go, and so we just switched over to remote, and then we had a basic structure of daily calls, with not too many people so that it can remain efficient. So every day there'll be a call with all the art team, so animators, level artists, all of that, and then we review what's in the works and all of that. And then there's also a daily gameplay call, so level designer, coders, and all of that, and and we're just going through the motions. It's basically as if we were at the studio. There's a video meeting room that's always open, so people can go there to either hang out, ask questions, discuss whatever, and do impromptu meetings. So yeah, it's for us. We're not seeing a hit in production, in productivity, I should say. Sorry. Like the output of the studio is as good as if we were on site. So we're kind of happy there.
And on the other hand, like something that I realized, just to give you a context, before I started doing entrepreneurship and building the studio, I never had like an amazing environment, and I had a couple of good jobs, I had a couple of bad ones, but I never had like a really amazing environment. But now that after years of in entrepreneurship and being able to meet a lot of people and see how other people work, like there is a certain kind of magic or certain energy that fills you when you're surrounded out with people who are, one, very talented, two, like all aim to the same goal, and that gives you extra energy. And that, to be honest, even though we also were set up to work online, so that on that end it didn't affect us. I see that working from home kinds of rob you of that kind of energy.
Mm-hmm.
How have you feel something similar to you, like when you're with your team in your studio? Like, uh, do you feel that that lack of magic, let's say, or
Mm-hmm.
of not being able to be together?
There is there for sure. There's something that is lost because we do this and we do this together because we like to be, with each other and bounce ideas every day, and of course you lose a little bit. There's a little bit of added friction. Like, do I really want to call someone about that compared to like, hey, just look at my screen like real quick. You won't call someone for just 2 seconds. So it definitely had us like structure a bit more of like taking notes what you want to talk with someone, and then when you have like 5 items, then you call them. So of course we're losing a little bit in the vibe, and things like, I mean, our campaign broke $1 million, and we can gather to celebrate and things like that. But I would say mostly that in perspective, these are really like small problems compared to everything that's going on in the world right now. So
Yeah.
in terms of like us kind of taking the downsides that we have, we feel like it's really effortless, But yes, to your point, for sure, we can't wait to be back at the studio, And some of us, it helps with their schedule as well, because some will now they prefer to work at night, and now they wake up super late, and they're like, I'm kind of losing a bit of a grip on a good schedule, and so I wish I had there were people over at the studio so that I'd feel like coming in earlier, things like that. So I mean, yeah, we're really excited to get back together, but we're so early in production um, that we're not seeing a dip in productivity or the quality of what we're producing. But if it kept on going until release, of course we would see like something getting lost because we're not doing build reviews all together on Friday, having a drink and talking about the game and pointing at the screen and then taking notes, And so when we get more into the polishing phases, hopefully the whole ordeal is resolved, and we can do that at the studio in our testing room, because that it was designed for that.
Yeah, definitely. And coming back to the game,
Yeah.
I know that obviously you're early production, and there is a lot that you cannot say, that you cannot talk about the game until it's finished. But can you tell us a little bit more? What is it about? Pretty much, what do you have planned for the game in the future, and what people can expect from it?
You mean just in general what we'll be working
Yeah, in
on for the
general.
game? Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I mean, we're building we're taking a crack at the grand epic story. So Messenger was a bit more, not necessarily lighthearted, but it had a lot of humor, and the humor will still be there. But certainly with Sea of Stars, we're talking about higher stakes. You know, so like more important events and more impactful characters and story arcs and twists and all of that. And so it's a bit annoying that we can't really talk about it, because we really want people to go into the game with no spoilers, and for all the surprises to really hit them 100%, and so that's why we only revealed 3 playable characters for combat out of 6, because we want you to discover, the other ones and them to come into the story, and maybe you don't expect them to join you, but if we say, hey, this character is playable, it's like when you meet the character and we're just teasing, then you already know what's going to happen. It can sort of ruin it. So we're trying to preserve the experience as much as possible, but like people can expect a game that will be, we distill, we don't dilute, so it won't be like 90 hours with grinding and never ending, bits filled with tedium. We're very much about having good pacing and the story keeping on moving forward, that like you're at the edge of your seat and you want to know what will happen next. And so I know very much it'll be based around the story, and we're pretty stoked on what we have right now. So people can look forward to an exciting adventure for sure.
and going back a little bit in time, how was it to meet the creators of Ninja Gaiden? I know that Ninja
Yeah.
Gaiden was an inspiration for the Messenger,
Oh,
and I
for
saw
sure.
the video of them going to an
Yeah.
event and playing the game, and then you coming out and meeting them. How was that
Oh yeah.
experience, and how did it happen? Can you tell us a little bit more about that
For
history?
sure. That was. I mean, yeah. That story ends with me. I went to cry in the restroom for 15 minutes. So we went to. So it was in 20. Was it 2018? Yeah, 2018, we went to Bit Summit, so in Kyoto, Japan. So a small indie games event there. Um, and so, being published by Devolver are involved with Bit Summit, and it was all like, of course you want to go to Japan, right? so we would go there, and we just have, a regular, very humble booth. Actually, it wasn't a big thing like we go to PAX and invest a lot. It was more like just a small table with a TV on it. And just people were playing the game, and we don't speak Japanese, but we had there were people around to help kind of like translate if people had questions, and we were just excited to be there. And so we're eating. I was with Martin, co-founder of Sabotage, and we were just outside eating. Just rice by the sidewalk. It's like let's get some food in us to then go back there. And then Nigel from Devolvers sends me a text, and he goes, "Hey man, the Ninja Gaiden creators are playing your game." I was like, "What?" And so it was like, food goes into the bin, and it just ran inside, and so. And then we just went in the event, and they were there, they were playing, and so we just shook their hands, and so it was Yamagishi and Yoshizawa, so the composer and the designer and director for the Ninja Gaiden trilogy on NES, and it was just, they were playing, they were curious about it, and the main thing that happened was, like, they wanted to take a picture with us. Like, they're the one who asked, like, they were, because you kind of get this fear, right, of will they think that we stole, or will they see that it's a tribute, and they totally acknowledged that it was its own thing, that they saw the love, but that they also recognized that it wasn't like, it was just a homage, and they were happy with that. And Yoshizawa said, and so they wanted to take a picture. We took a picture, and then we talked a little bit, and as you may know, Yamagishi ended up writing two bonus tracks for Messenger, and 8-bit style, going back to his roots, and in the end, Yoshizawa said there was Ninja Gaiden 4, and so that's when I lost it. I shook their heads, and their hands, and I felt the tears coming up, and I was like, I can't do this. I can't like cry on the open floor at Bit Summit. Everyone is already kind of looking at me, and so I went to the restroom, and I cried it out, and no, it was a very, very special moment, for sure, to have, because the games come from for me, as in the creative process, it comes from childhood. It's a universe that I've been slowly building in my mind for since elementary school, and so it's very much rooted in those emotions and those heroes from childhood, and to be not only meeting them, but also that they acknowledge your work as a proper recognition of their work. It was it was it was a lot to take in.
Yeah, I can imagine. Like, I was a huge Ninja Gaiden as well, and I can really imagine what it meant for you, man. So congratulations on that. and
Thank you.
and now, like, and I'm really excited because, again, like, I understand where you're coming from. Like, I grew up with these games as well, and then I saw like the composer of Chrono Trigger working for Sea of Stars, and again, like I told you, this is a game that even now I still have, like, in my phone. I bought the version in Steam. I still have the SNES version with the save file, all that, like.
Right.
And I love the music. Like, I even have listened to the orchestra versions of the music of Chrono Trigger and all that. So when I saw the composer of the music of Chrono Trigger was working on your game, I was like, fuck, it's crazy.
Yeah.
This is amazing. So how did you got that opportunity, or how did you get him to work with you for this project?
Well, there was a very big lesson learned there. So I think that's interesting to share for sure. So we've been asking since, was it 2017? I think was our first GDC as Sabotage. And anytime we met someone, who was remotely associated to, music or talent agent, or like anyone we felt, was even like 20 degrees of separation to, Mitsuda, we asked, like, hey, is there any way to get this guy to, like, because we have our composer, as you know, Eric Brown, who did the soundtrack for Messenger and won an award for it, and so, but we still want, the being such a tribute to these retro style RPGs, the game would be incomplete with him as a guest composer to contribute, a few tracks. And so we had been asking, because we knew we were doing Sea of Stars yet next, since the studio was founded. It was the plan all along, and all we ever got as a response from anyone, was, it's such a long shot. It's such a long shot. And it's like, yeah, I know, but it's like, might as well ask for it, and we'll just see what happens, And some people were like, well, maybe I could sort of try, but we never really heard back. And it's understood, Mitsuda is not out there looking for work, he's just working what he's excited. He's working on what he's excited to work on, and he's probably heard the pitch of the retro-inspired RPG thousands of times at this point, So in the end, all it took was to let the game speak for itself and to ask politely and directly to his studio. So we reached out to his studio, and it was like, look, here's what we're building. Here's where it comes from. We're wearing it on its sleeve. It's not just a retro thing. We're modernizing mechanics and everything, but it's highly inspired by this era, and we feel it would be incomplete if we didn't have Mitsuda, contribute something to it, and also how meaningful it would be to the players that the proposition is attracting. And so by the time we had the game together, a concise description of the idea and the vision and the story for it, which we haven't spoiled to the public yet, but he knows about the deeper things that are going on in the game, and it was like, yeah, I can like get behind that, because it kind of, to him, it seemed to have the right amount of retro inspiration and but also enough effort to modernize for it to be its own thing. And yeah, he just basically said yes, but he was also like, he was inspired by it. So that was the part where I lost it again. But that time I was at home, so I was okay to cry in my room. But yeah, that is by far the biggest thing that happened, not only in my career but in my life, I should say.
And how much time did it took you to get to that point where he accepted? How many years did you spend like trying to do the pitch?
Well, so I mean, it was about like 3 years of just asking around and hoping something would unlock, right? But in the end, it all came down to within a couple of weeks of reaching out directly with a clear proposition and a clear vision for the game, with like screenshots, gameplay footage, explanation of the story and all of that, just sending that package over. From there, it was just a couple of weeks. It was just concrete enough,
The reason why I'm asking is because in this industry I have met a lot of artists and who are talented, who are spirited, but I think that give up really easy. Like they get the first no, or they get the first not response, let's say, and they stop trying. But on the same time, doing interviews and meeting people, I have met people who, let's say, their dream was working at Disney or Pixar, and they had to apply like 15 times. And for example, in their case, it was not an issue that they were not good enough to work with them. It was that, well, one, the projects are secret, like yours, like nobody knows what they are working on. So the reason why they didn't got hired when they applied the first times was because there was not a project where their art will be a match for it. But once there was a project that was a match for their art, like they got hired immediately. But again, like nobody knows what they are working on because they are secret. So the only way left the only way out of that situation was to keep applying over and over and over and over again during many years until they got until they apply at the right time and pretty much got in. But and on my side, like I've been trying to interview this guy in the animation industry called Genndy Tartakovsky. He's the guy, the director of Hotel Transylvania, and he did the Clone Wars, Samurai Jack, Dexter Laboratory, all this kind of thing. And I even got the access to his agent, but he has been like, he is insanely busy. Like as soon as he finishes one project, like he gets called into another one. And I've been like pushing for this interview for like 4 years now. And again, it's like his agent told me like, okay, like you can try this month or this time, and then I try, and it's like he just called in into another project. It's like, oh man, but I definitely feel I definitely feel your experience because of the same experience that I had with Genndy. But the reason why I was asking was because I think it's important to let people know that they should try to keep persistent. Obviously, in a polite way, not in a
Of course. Oh yeah,
in an
always.
obnoxious way, but that is
Yeah.
good to keep trying to push it a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And
Mm-hmm.
when you contacted his studio, did you do it in English or did you get somebody else to do it in Japanese and send the email?
Yes. So so it was in English because they do have like a correspondent, someone that handles English communications, and then he's like, oh, I'll get in touch and get back to you, and things like that. But the whole pitch deck we had translated in Japanese, for him to read directly, and we wanted it to feel right for him to get like the proper meaning out of everything.
Yeah, definitely. And and now that you have been working with him and creating this music, how was the experience coming from the language barrier and also the whole experience of working with him? Can you talk to us a little bit more about it?
Well, so far all we've had is just an agreement that we want to work together and we want to collaborate, and it's like we're still kind of looking around like which parts of the game would you like to take care of or whatever, and which areas would be properly more better left, to him or whatever. So we're not like fully in production on that level,
Okay.
on that specific part of the game. But so we have 2 years ahead of us, so it will come into play a bit more later as the game shapes up a little bit, and we have something for him to play and feel and compare and bring input on. So maybe I can get back to you once we've had a few iterations. But yeah, it's still a bit early for me to comment on that.
Okay, yeah, I definitely understand. The reason why I'm asking that is because as an animation studio, we have seen this opportunity opening in Japan.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you know, but the industry of animation in Japan is kind of in a weird moment at right now. There is a lot of great animators who, when you realize how much they're getting paid, like it is really
Oh,
low.
really?
And
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
and
Hmm.
this is an idea that has been brewing in our mind that uh, to see if we can like get people from Japan, because I'm sure you know about this, but they have a whole different culture when it comes to art and work ethic and the way they do things. So
For
I
sure.
do think that they will be able to pull like amazing like an amazing work if we were able to put this talent together.
Hmm.
And yeah, like my vision is like, okay, if the salaries there are bad, then if we can come in and offer good salaries and offer a good environment to work with
Hmm.
that is not overworking them or making any
Right.
problems for them, and we give them also a mission, then something amazing can come out of it.
Hmm.
Something amazing can come out of it. So that's one of my interests in your experience on working with them and yeah, and pretty much doing this. And it would be amazing if I could get like some of my heroes from Japan as well to work in some of our future projects.
Right.
That would be great. And also, can you tell us a little bit about the history of how Sabotage was founded? Pretty much who were the first members
Yeah.
and how did you put together this idea? And also, when did you feel comfortable to say, okay, I'm ready to pursue this?
Hmm. Well, for me, it was always, like I wanted to make these games. I set out to be a developer, and I wanted to become a game designer. And so instead of going to it wasn't really a thing to study for game design directly back then. Um, but my belief was, in looking at my childhood heroes, game designers, uh, what I figured was, I guess you go in through one of the crafts, right? And then that's more of a hard skill, coding, art, something like that. And then you get experience in production, and once you've shipped a few projects and you've seen the kind of curveballs and the things that can go wrong and all of that, then maybe at some point you're ready to kind of be a game designer. You can kind of like call the shots in production and ask for systems and make sure you won't be driving everything into the wall, and then to fix problems without causing overwork, and all of that. It's very important. So for me, the experience as a programmer has been really important, because implementing systems, and being accountable for them in the end, and then you see like, if we only did this instead of that, it would have been much simpler. And so it's kind of developing this mindset or this perspective on how a game designer could do their work in a way that's a bit more in tune with the realities of production. So that's at least how I looked at it. And so for me, after 8 years, I just felt ready. I felt I had shipped enough projects. I didn't feel a drive. I wasn't excited about, because in working for clients, you still do pretty cool stuff, touched, Spider-Man and Star Wars, and SpongeBob, and things like that. And just at some point, it wasn't exciting for me anymore, no matter what we signed and which brand we got to touch, I wouldn't have been excited about that. So that's when I thought, okay, maybe now it's time I build, my own thing so that I can be excited again about working as a developer. And so, yeah, I mean, just it's just from there, it was kind of developing my own vision and surrounding myself with people who we saw things the same way, so that this way of working, this mindset as a studio, it would be a place where, we don't track hours. If you're not there on Wednesday, I don't call you, but you are naturally yourself driven. You want to make a great game. You want to work together, and so if in April we show something at PAX, we won't look stupid, but again, if you're not there at 9 a.m. or 10 a.m., I won't be, hey, are you up yet or what are you doing? We really trust in everyone, and the team would be built in a way that also that everyone would inspire each other and drive everyone else forward, so the music composer releases a track, and then the level artist is like, this track is way too good, I need to make the background cooler, and then the background is cooler when you look at the game the next morning, and then the gameplay coder is like, yeah, this looks pretty cool, I guess the boss could use some polishing, and then polishes the boss, and so all of that is very much a drive. And it was a big shift for us from a servicing studio working for clients, where it was like, this is the budget, and we need to do basically the minimum effort to get paid on this, because that's where the margin is, where it was switching from a mindset of delivering just on time and on budget, which we kept, which is important, but shifting to the priority would be quality, instead of quantity, instead of how many projects we can make within a year or 2 years, it would be how good we can make them. So that was a big shift. So from that vision, I started working on a prototype with Phil, who's our level designer. He has a lot of AAA experience. He used to work on the Prince of Persia, Warrior Within, and Two Thrones, and also started he was on the core team for the first Assassin's Creed. And then he was happy to like apply all this knowledge to indie games. So it was like, so the two of us together, we're very good friends. We game together and all that, and so all the time. And so we started working evenings. We kept our day jobs, and we started working evenings and weekends on a prototype for Messenger. And then once that all kind of came together, that's when I met Eric, who's our composer. He's from Denver in the US, and he was touring my town, and I just went to meet him after his set, and I said, hey man, I'm starting this indie retro games kind of deal, and you're a chiptune artist on top of everything else you do in music. So he basically cut me off and said, yes, I'll make music with you guys, that sounds fun, and so now it was like, okay, now there's good catchy 8-bit chiptune music in our prototype, so now it's kind of a thing, and so at first that was like me doing gameplay code while trying to shift towards game design with Phil, level designer, who also does illustrations, so we had placeholder art. Now we had good music, and so that's when I met Martin, who co-founded with me, because I knew that in Canada there's like bags of money flying around, but I don't care about anything like administration or filling forms or asking the government for money. I don't know how any of that works. I just want to, make the games. And Martin was in his role as a producer in the big studio I was also working at before. He knew this pipeline really well, of getting finance for through the culture funds, and so basically we co-founded, and he got on that while I kept working on the game with just another coder by that time. And then eventually we got funding through that, and so we ramped up the team, and basically that's how it all started.
Amazing. And yeah, I think it is really important the way how you build things, because, well, as you know, like also in the video game industry and the animation industry, there is this term, this hated term that is called crunch time, that many studios suffer from it. One of the I didn't knew this term, to be honest, but once I knew, I was aware about it. It was like, man, I really don't want to create an environment like that. Like if I can put like a lot of effort to not do that, that would be amazing. And but yeah, I think it is also really great the way that you have built your studio and your team, because as you mentioned, like these are people who are self-motivated, so you don't have to be on top of them, and that you can trust them enough that they will be able to do the work that they need to do. So on that term, do you think that this kind of work ethic or this kind of passion can be taught, or it is something that you need to look for people who already have it?
It's hard to, I mean, that's a good one. So for me, what happened is through my career, I knew that I had this work ethic, and in the sense that I want to be happy with what I put out, otherwise I'm dissatisfied, and the frustration for me was not so much with crunch, but with, I mean, I'm against it, but my main problem was we tried to warn this project manager who doesn't really care about games, and I'm not saying project managers are like that, but it just happened to be like something I saw a lot in my previous career. And it was like, we tried to warn you about this, that this is what we think the client meant or wanted, and then you didn't listen, and now we're working all weekend to bring it to what we knew it was 2 weeks ago, but you didn't let us do it properly the first time around. So this thing about like being smart, about making sure that before you ask the production team to work on something, that it's actually what you need, that it will actually be in the end product, because you don't want to rework and redo stuff. Now, with that being said, there's a lot of iteration going on when you're prototyping mechanics, So what we do is we let it be ugly, basically. We don't make it pretty until we've made it fun. So gray boxes and stick figures, figure out the gameplay, the physics, and all of that. Then once the animators get to work, you know for sure that you're keeping everything, because you already have placeholder animations that have the proper timing and all of that, And so for us, no, crunch, I mean, there's no way, everyone puts in the effort that they want to put in, and there's no shaming, there's no obligations, there's no, and if, for example, with animation, we found it wasn't because anyone wasn't productive enough, there was just too much work to do. Like an RPG is a much bigger deal than a side scroller, at least for us, with the amount of enemies and the bosses and all of that, the special effects and all the attacks. And we realized in making that we wanted a lot of idle breakers, and things that add a lot of personality. So that's a lot of work. So instead of saying, well, okay, then just fit that in the same budget or timeline, so we realized, no, we need to add, more people to the animation team, and it's never like, if an ask isn't reasonable, the vibe that we have at the studio is just tell me, because I'm not an animator, I'm not an artist, I'm a programmer and I'm a writer. So I do game design and then code I can sort of understand still, but I've been out of those loops for a few years now. But so if I ask for something for animation and it doesn't make sense, and there's a way to do that that's way smarter, let's have the conversation, But then if it's mandatory for the quality or the vision, then it's my task to see what I want to cut instead, or whether I want to add someone else to the team, But it's never on the animator to like take something that's impossible and just make it fit, which is something that I've seen a lot, not only for animators, but for coders as well. For like every single craft in the games industry, I've seen that, and you end up crunching, and it's always because the ask it's impossible up front, and it's like basically banking on how motivated, how driven to do this for a living these artists are, and then you're kind of like abusing that, and no, that's not
Yeah,
we're not done with that at all.
Yeah, and when you mentioned there, like again, like once I found out about the crunch time, I started looking for that, and it was kind of, not always, but always kind of the same problem that you just mentioned, that it was a problem with management, and the same, like people not understanding or not caring, or managing badly the team that they already had, even if they already had a talented team. And that caught my attention because, again, coming back to the Japanese culture, I do read a lot of business books, and in one of them, I think it was Ford, when he was trying to improve his line for the production of cars, that he traveled to Japan and he started like seeing. Oh no, it was General Motors. Sorry, one of the bosses in General Motors went to Japan and see how they did things. And in one of these experiences, he was visiting a piano manufacturing kind of business. And there is like this place in the piano that is a huge metal chunk where that is like an arc where all the pieces go. Pretty much is the base where you build the piano, right? And he talked with the guy who was working on it, and asked him like, how many do you do? And it's like, as many as I can do in the day. Like if I can do 2 or 3 in the day, then it's good. But if I have to work extra on one and just produce one, then that's good enough too as well. And it's like, what does your manager say? And he was like, what's a manager? and he was like the person who makes sure that you're doing a good work. And he replied like, why do I need a person to make sure that I do good work? I make sure that I do good work. And it was complete shift from the US kind of mindset and over there, right? And I think that's pretty much what is happening right now with your company. Like you don't need the manager to be on top. Like people are making sure that they put the quality on front.
Right. Well, so, and that's the thing too, is that wanting to make games for a living, it has to come from passion. No one will do that. Like if you're a programmer making games, every day you're making the choice not to double your salary by working for security for a bank, So if you're still here, something in you is driven to create art, So you're an artist, even though we seldom think of programmers as artists, but they still want to create experiences. They want to share them. They want there to be emotion, in what they work on. And they want to interact with visual arts and integrate them and make sure that they feel right and all of that. So this care, there's something in there, So you don't need to convince people or force them to do it. And the way I think of this thing is, it's kind of on me to bring ideas that will drive those artists to invest their precious time working on that instead of another project, because there's thousands of projects, and a lot of people might want to hire them, given that a lot of most of the studio are senior now, so it's not the same challenges as when you're just starting out. You have high demand because your name is attached to a few big projects. And for us, even just with Messenger, people are reaching out, hey, won't you leave the studio because you made this and we'd want your expertise and all of that. And the fact that they're staying is that they believe in those ideas and that they believe that it's worth their time, So when an artist that really wants to do good work, and I do include programmers, and when I say artists, they stay at your studio, like you don't need to look at the hours that they put in, or like there's going to be dips, some weeks you'll be less motivated or whatever, but then you'll make up for it, on your own, because you feel responsible and you genuinely want to deliver something good. And, usually when I have those conversations with other, or if we go to a more generalized like entrepreneurship thing or whatever, and people would be like, yeah, but that approach will never work as you ramp up to 90 people. It's like, yeah, but we never will, and often the response is like, what, you don't want to make it bigger just because you could? It's like, no, I don't, I want to keep it small, keep a family atmosphere to it, really tighten it, and really be in touch with everyone on a human level, know what's going on in their lives, and be able to take the time to genuinely care, about every single person who works at the studio. And then that comes through in the work that we do, and it you kind of feel it in the games as well. I think there's a very wholesome vibe, and the approach is heart to heart. It's not like, oh, we identified on the market, that there's a need for a retro side scroller. The market analysis is probably like, there's too many already. Why would you make the messenger? But it's like, no, we're like, that's what we genuinely want to make. And so this heart to heart approach, people just gather around if they care too, and we go from there.
Yeah, and definitely it is important to think about this as a family as well, because I don't know if you know about this study, but they made like this very complete and complex study about how many people can you have in your life and without your brain kind of caring about it. And they found out like that is about 150 people, like the top people that you can actually have in your mind. And for like really, really extroverted people, like the maximum was 200 people. But they also find that, let's say if you like these 150 people that you consider your friends, when they ask them if they go and ask those people as well, like if they consider you their friends, half of them will not. So in reality, like what they ended up discovering is that you can have like 5 really close friends, like on top of mine, and then like about 75 people that are really close to you, and that's like kind of the limit on how many people you can get. But again, like once you start like ramping up more than 100 people in the company, and I've been seeing this with the smaller studios, right, that once they break this barrier of 150 employees and they start to get to 200, 500 employees, like kind of the culture over there, the people stop caring for each other, cliques start forming, and a lot of problems come in just because of the fact that you grow up the number of people inside a company. So that's something that many do not have in mind when they just go because it is more money, right?
Right.
And when it comes in this path, and this is going to be like a really tricky question, but just to give you a little bit of context, when I started out, I had all these challenges in my mind that I was going to face, and what I found out happening that it was that these problems never happen, or if they happen, like it was really easy to resolve. But the things that were really hard to deal with was things that I never even thought about. And so on the experience of finding out the things that we don't know, what was something that you didn't expect at all into this path that became true, and it's really important to know?
One thing I didn't expect, you mean like just a curveball that I got from starting and running the studio and all of that?
Yeah, a principle, something that a lesson that you learned, something like that.
Well, I mean, the big one for me was that it's so I didn't know how much work it was going to be. Like I didn't know I had the guts to work this hard, to be honest. Like I thought, I only ever saw like the okay, I need to start a company, so how do we do that? Okay, cool. Like there's 2 of us, so let's have the discussion and figure it out. At least there's that. Okay, hey Martin, what are you doing today? And let's look at this and that. And I kind of came, like it's been 4 years now, a little over 4 years for Sabotage, and there was somewhere around the 3-year mark when I just had a pause moment, and I was like, man, I just spent 3 years thinking that this was the last month when I was really busy, and had like 35 things on my mind that once they were resolved, I could finally like slow down and find a proper pace, and it just be good, And this started on day one, or at least it had been more than 3 years actually, because it was even before the company was started, like about 4 months before launching the company. I started having this constantly thinking about it and all the things that are like open items that need to be resolved, and that I hope someone gets back to us, and I hope it's fine, and hopefully this gets resolved, but like to spend 3 years thinking, in a month it'll cool down and I'll be fine. That's not sustainable, And then I realized it's been 3 years, so everything indicates that in 10 years it'll still be like that, And it's not like I broke down or anything, because I try to think of it as I've been fortunate, but anyway, I had a big mental breakdown more than 10 years ago, and it forced me to reevaluate some things and connect with myself and make sure that I maintain healthy, habits for it not to happen again. But I would have burnt out for sure if I let that, overtake me, everything there is to do constantly. And so now for the last year, I've been finding some peace, and there's all of this that I have to take care of, for the business or whatever, everything that we have going on. And about this, there's always something, But now I'm not looking forward to those things being resolved anymore. I don't defer when I will allow myself to feel calm and peace when these things are done, because now I know for sure that by then there will be 10 other items that will be a constant worry and that I can lose sleep over, So now I've just accepted that this will be a constant in my career, that there's always all these things going on, and now I'm more working towards trying to find moments when it's okay to worry about them, and then to also let it go and it's time to unwind and relax, because that's the best way to remain, productive in the long run, and to be making the right calls, that you've had that personal time, or that time to cool down, or just have fun, even though there's tons to do, So yeah, that would be definitely the big one for me. Like it will not end. There's always something, and you got to accept this and just be in the eye of the storm,
Yeah, I think that we all kind of suffer from this kind of mindset that one day the pain and the frustration will be over and we will be able to relax and kind of
Yeah.
just lay down, and everything will run smoothly. And again, I think that it was now it has been around the 3-year mark when I realized, oh, there is no end.
Right.
Like,
Right.
As long as I'm alive, there is no end. Like this thing never ends.
Exactly. Yeah.
And coming back to this idea of for these moments when you feel overwhelmed or unfocused, what do you do to get back to your center and keep in the game?
Oh, well, that one's a bit easy for me, because I've been casually, never professionally, but I've been playing drums for over 20 years now, and so I just go play drums. I love my punk rock, and I've always been a casual, musician, and so whenever it's too much, because you get in your head too much, and for me, mostly my craft is writing, and I keep reading and rereading, and I'm like, this is terrible, I'm a terrible writer, and when I get into that space, I've learned not to fight it so much anymore. I know that it's just wasted energy, so I leave it there. And then I either take a super long shower, or I go play drums. But usually I just go play drums, and like 15 to 20 minutes will be enough. And then I reset. It's like physical activity, and gets you out of that space. Get the either anger, disappointment, whatever you're feeling, you just let it out. Then I come back to it with a fresh mind, and really often it's like I can bang my head on something for 30 minutes. But if I just walk away for 10 minutes and come back, it's solved instantly, And so I think a lot of people feel that as well. So yeah, it's really important to have that go-to thing that you can do, and also to learn that it's okay to do it,
Yeah, hidden things works wonders to relax the body and the mind. And if you were to meet a smart-driven artist who is about to enter, let's call it the real world, what would be your advice for that person? And also, what advice should that person ignore?
Well, okay, that's good. The first one is first, I think you shouldn't let anyone tell you who you are. I think that would be the most. I think that's the most important for me, like my most important takeaway, because in hindsight, I probably should have started Sabotage a bit earlier, and there was a time where I was trying to become a game designer, but I was being pigeonholed as like, no, we make good money with you as a programmer, so keep leading the teams and the projects are going well, so we don't want to take a risk of you trying something else because you want to do it, and it's kind of like, and I was trying to bring ideas, proposing projects that we could be working on, and so don't give your best ideas to your employer. They're yours, and it's worth a lot more than just getting to work on it through someone else who will then have their name on it. If you have that $1,000 idea or $1 million idea that you strongly believe in, keep it for yourself and get some experience, and there will be a time you'll be surrounded by the right people that resonate with them, and then you will get to make it, on your terms, at your pace, with your vision, and also you won't be making all those rookie mistakes as you work on your idea. That's really important. Someone will have paid for those mistakes. You paid with your time, because as a junior you don't get a really good salary, but you get to learn a lot. But then also your mistakes are on the house, right? And then once you're pretty confident, you're not making so many mistakes anymore, then you can get cracking on your idea. But mostly don't let anyone tell you who you are. I've met, I've met my fair share of artists as well, working in game studios, and I'm thinking of one in particular who, she wanted to be a character artist, and she was being told, no, you're not a character artist, just keep working on what we have you working on, and we're happy with you making this. And she ended up leaving and becoming a character artist, and is actually way getting a lot more recognition now, or at least I would say getting the recognition she deserves, because she's blooming as a character artist, So that's another good example. Like, what you want to do, and what feels right for you. If you have that urge, that drive, and you have this inner conviction that you want to do something, like the amount of times I've been told I'm not a game designer, if I let that bring me down, I never would have started my studio, because I would have thought I was an imposter, It was like, no, you're a programmer, get back to work. You're a programmer, get back to work. It's like, no, I'm a game designer, you can't see it. And it's the quote I heard, I don't remember who it was from. I think perhaps just a friend told me, but so the quote is, when someone says you can't do something, it doesn't mean you can do it. It just means you can't do it with them, right? And so if you have this project or this role that you see yourself in, and your employer is being like, no, that's not you, or whatever, it's like, it's okay, not here, but don't let that mean to you that you're not worth it, or you can do it, or you're not good enough, or you don't, it's like, no, there will be a time and a place for that, and you keep going for that, and yeah.
Yeah, and definitely, just to hammer on that, I think it is really important what you say, that do not give your ideas to your employer. Like,
right.
That is a really huge mistake. Mm-hmm. And we had an interview with Brenda Chapman, and she was an amazing artist and animator, and she made this mistake. Like, she came with an idea she had to Pixar, that when he was working there, and they have, like, Disney and Pixar had in their contracts that anything that you think of while you're working with them, like, it's theirs. And imagine that, yeah. And this idea was the movie Brave, and in the end they took she started directing it, then they had an issue happened, and they took her out of the project, and she even ended up like winning an Academy Award, but she didn't receive any money from this idea, because it was her salary. Like, she pretty much she agreed to that. And the sad part is that this idea was an idea that she created before she was working in Pixar, but because she never showed it to anybody, she didn't protect it first. They legally took out the idea for themselves.
Wow.
Yeah. Horrible history. But she gave us like some good feedback on how to protect ideas, even if you're a small creator. But yes, as you said, do not give your ideas to your boss.
Never. Yeah.
And have you ever had through this path? Have you ever had like a failure or something that looked like a failure that actually has set you up for success in the future?
I actually pitched Messenger to a former employer, and it was in a setting where it didn't belong to them if I told them, about it. But the feedback I got was it was a terrible idea, and retro games, and then why would you do that? And ninjas have been overdone, and like the response was basically that there was absolutely zero value there. And so I remember feeling down, right? But then I still felt this. I'm not sure the term is frustration. Maybe my English is failing me a bit right now, but I wasn't happy at work. There was something wrong, and I thought, because I just felt there was a way to work and to treat people and to approach production and the type of games to make that would feel like what I had imagined it would be like to be a dev when I was young and I wanted to set out to do this for a living, And for me, launching the company was also that experiment. I thought, the worst case is along the way, I will realize why my vision doesn't work. And then I can then go back to a day job peacefully, because now I know why I need a boss or why I need to be told how to apply my craft, because if I do it on my own, it fails or whatever, Now, fortunately, along the way, it ended up working out, but like so this failure for me was really important in the sense that if they had accepted the project, it would have turned out not being something I'm happy with and not something I make a dime on, And so because I had that failure, it kind of forced me into, because I'm not an entrepreneur, I'm not a businessman, I'm not a guy who wanted to run his studio, I just wanted to make games, be happy to make games, and make a game that I'd care to play in an environment that I care to show up to every day, working with people I think are cool, and make cool stuff with them. I realized that was impossible unless or at least for me, or in a way that I cared to undertake, unless I did it myself. And so for me, like having the business and all that is kind of like an annoyance, if you will, or a necessary evil that allows me to make my project the way I care to make it, So it was necessary, it was mandatory for that. And so that failure of being told like, yeah, this idea is absolutely worthless, and it proves to us that you're a programmer and not a game designer, so now go back to work, was like, okay, now I either fit the mold and let you tell me who I am and then just do that forever and live unhappily ever after, or I go, yeah, okay, maybe you're wrong, maybe there's value to this idea and I can just go for it, And so this kind of this rejection pushed me to do it,
And on that topic, where did you get like, let's call it the confidence in yourself and the inner security to kind of take the decision? Because I do know a lot of people who are like very talented who, if they had been in your situation, like they would have been completely destroyed internally and they would have never tried again to do something on their own.
Right. I mean, that one's a bit hard to tell. It's for me, it really came from the big mental breakdown I sort of referred to earlier. It really got me thinking and rethinking my life, and it really outlined the importance of I wanted everything I did to be meaningful to me, and so this drive to look, I'll just do it. For me, it came from having nothing to lose. When a Tupperware is like so dirty that you just want to put it in the garbage bin instead of cleaning it,
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that, It's like I felt like my career was in this state, It's like if I keep going, it'll get to a point where I don't even want to make games anymore. So this fear of failing, that I start my thing and it doesn't work out, and then I'm out of a job or in debt or whatever, or I don't make games anymore, or I completely lost my name or any credibility in my industry. It's like that's gonna happen anyway, even if only internally from me towards myself, So it's like if it's all lost anyway, might as well try it. For me, that's really what it was. I was at a point where I had nothing to lose, So I wasn't leaving a situation I was happy with to take a big risk. I was taking a situation I was unhappy with, and then I knew what I wanted, and the only hurdle was the effort that it would would demand. So it's like I'll just take the first step, and then the second step, and then the third step, and then eventually people gather around it. It gives you energy, and then you build your thing.
Yeah, I think what you mentioned here is really important. There are not many people who know, well, or at least not many people that I know that the state of mind that you just described,
Mm.
and I think that on one side, the world that we live in is trying to put us into this uh, safe safe environment and not to challenge, not to face any hardships and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that many people wouldn't like to be in the position that you were in, like when you were completely unhappy and you were having this mental breakdown. But I also had a situation very similar to that, and just to let you know, like it got so bad, like that I didn't saw any point on life anymore, and even
Right.
was thinking about putting this bullet in my
Oh
head at
wow.
the time.
Okay.
And I have it here as a reminder, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and
Well.
and then I figured out that thanks to the internet, like we could do a lot of amazing things.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, like, well, let's try this thing first.
Yeah.
The bullet will be there, but let's try this thing first,
Yeah.
and if it
Yeah.
doesn't work, then yeah, we'll see what happens then. But at least let me try it, and let's try it really hard. And that's pretty much when I started as well. Like I think uh, you and me came out from a point of desperation, and not
Mm-hmm.
like many people start the studio or start their own project because of the passion or whatever. I think we
Yeah.
both started from a point of desperation of not wanting to to keep
Yeah.
dealing with this kind of problems,
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
and it gives you a different kind of a strength, I think, because things will get hard again. Like it never ends. Like the hardship
Yeah.
never ends, and when you find these problems in doing the things that you love, like uh, for me at least, it is really easy. Like, and we have faced a lot of problems that were really hard, but even in those moments, I can easily ask myself, like, is this as hard as, or this does this feel as horrible as it felt back then when
Mm-hmm.
when I felt trapped? And
Right.
the
Right.
answer is always no. Like the
Right.
answer
Right.
is always no. I'm doing things that I love. I'm doing things that I really care about,
Right.
and not trying to find more people to work with, people that I love to work with, and and that's a whole different angle to see things, because again, like as hard as it gets, it's still way better than it was
Mm.
back then.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And again, you touched on considering giving up there, and that's also something I relate to. But that's the thing is my takeaway there was, eh, it's not that there's no solutions. It's that you feel that what it would take to affect the change in your life for it to be worth living seems insurmountable. It seems impossible to undertake, and so you'd rather give up than undertake that, and that's absolutely understandable. But then you just try and you just take the first step, and as you say, it starts feeling better every day. So, and then you have this resistance to all the hardships, because you've seen the worst of them. So.
Yeah, definitely. And also,
Mm.
if you could pick the phone and call yourself when you were 17 years old, what advice would you give yourself?
Oh wow. I mean, I don't think I wouldn't want to mess with that, because I want to make sure I end up exactly where I am right now, you know. And so it's like, what if I have it easier, and then I never develop this kind of drive or ability to do what I'm doing now, and then I'm not as happy with where I'm at in the end. But um, no, I think for sure, like trying to please people less would have been a good like just worrying less about what people think, and about other people's judgment. Yeah, that's definitely where I spent, where I wasted, I should say, the bulk of my energy.
Yeah, I think there is great wisdom in, let's say, old people, because there is this quote from if I remember correctly, it was Winston Churchill, and he was saying like when you're 20, like you're really worried about what people think about you.
Yeah.
Then uh, then you're 40 and you don't care about what people think about you anymore. And then
Mm-hmm.
when you get to the 60s, you realize that nobody was thinking about you anyway.
All right.
and, and something that I've been trying to kind of get, kind of the wisdom that I get from people who are older than me is that I think that people when they are older, they already can see more clearly what are the things that truly are important and the things that we think when we are young like are super important and they weren't.
Right.
And yeah, if I'm trying to bring that kind of wisdom into my head as soon as possible, like
Yeah.
trying to not care about these things that for now seem like wow, like
Mm-hmm.
this matters a lot. But I think that there are many things that you can say that you thought were really important back when you were 17, and now you can see it's like no.
Right. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And this is going to be a really, really, really hard question. Probably it is the hardest question that I have developed for these interviews. But
Okay.
let's say if you wake up tomorrow in a different dimension, nobody knows about you, but you still have your house, your skills, your experience, everything that you need to do work, but you have lost your portfolio. You have $500 in your pocket. What do you do to get back to this point as soon as possible?
As soon as possible.
Yeah.
Well, as soon as possible is the hardest part because for me the only metric has been to be happy with who I'm working with and what I'm working on. For me the high is not to release a game. It's to make it with the people who I'm making it with. Like a thing like Sea of Stars. It's like I don't look. I mean, of course, I look forward to people playing it because in the end, I was born to be a storyteller, so there should be, if I'm blessed with an audience, it's great to get their feedback. But the thing I'm looking forward to the most is to be actively working on it for the next 2 years. So I think with $500 and just my house, I could probably set up a very cheap studio and surround myself with friends and I think on day one I'd be where I want to be and that I would be working on something I care to work on with the people I care to work with. Um, so I understand that your question was probably more towards to winning a game award and then to being asked to be questioned on a panel in Japan at Bit Summit and all of that. I think that either comes or it doesn't. But for me, it wouldn't be a goal or a metric. I think it would just be like getting set up and doing what I care to do with the people I care to do it with, and then whatever happens from there. And as long as we can keep doing that, that's where I'm happy. So it's not too tough for me, I guess.
No, I think your answer is completely amazing because, uh, again, there is a lot of people, and I have been in that mindset a couple of times. I'm not going to deny that where it's all business, it's all metrics, and trying to do as much money as possible. But
Mm-hmm.
I do think that uh, people are quickly, thanks to the internet and the massive exposure of all these uh, commercials, marketing strategies, and all these kind of things.
Right.
I think people have been able to learn really quickly when something is a marketing strategy that doesn't have a soul and they are just trying to make money
Yeah.
versus something that somebody has created it because they love it and it's unique
Yeah.
and
Right.
there is a lot of passion. And yeah, I think that especially with the lockdown and the economy and all that, and everything that is happening right now, we will be able to see quicker this shift in mindset from people
Right.
of trying to support things that where people have actually put heart in it versus things that are just there to make money. And I think people will be able to recognize it faster, and I think we'll see a shift on consumer behavior, let's call it that way, where people are going to try to walk away from the soulless corporation kind of work, and trying to support things that actually have passion behind them.
Right.
Awesome. So if people want to, well, before this, I want to ask you, is there any advice that you would like to give that we haven't talked into this interview yet?
Advice, sorry?
Yeah.
Any advice?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, for me, again, I came from a place where I was pretty broken. So the thing I found the most value on in my life was therapy, working on yourself and having that, being humble and opening up about your genuine emotions, and trying to connect and reconnecting, with your inner child, and taking care of yourself, and all of that. For me, that has been like a tremendous help on all areas, and work, of course, specifically as well. It helps the creative process as well, because you learn to kind of pay attention to your own ideas, and if you learn that if something has value to you, then that's valid, and that's okay. And instead of always being in the fear of judgment or rejection, you learn to kind of put your ideas forward, and for any artist, that it gives, for me, it was a big boost in confidence in actually getting my work done, because I developed this filter where if it's okay for me or good enough for me, then it's good enough, and someone can disagree, and then I can work with someone else instead, So that was a very important shield that I developed. So I would encourage anyone to kind of take a look inside first and find their own vulnerability, because it's really fueling the creative process for me.
Awesome. And what is the impact that you want to have in the world through your work?
Well, pretty much, I would say pretty much what I just touched on, always trying to have a hint in my craft of getting people curious about this inner journey that they can take, and how important and meaningful it can be. For me, a good game coming out of Sabotage is a game where you both laugh and cry, and a few times each, at least. More laugh than cries, but you should still cry at least a couple of times, to kind of feel that connection. So that's for us, it's just, we want to make quality entertainment, and we want to help people, because I can't speak for the whole team, because it's more of a personal thing, I guess, but games have helped me a lot through hard times, and I know that, and now that we're receiving feedback and fan mail, we know that it's also helping other people. There's someone who laughed for the first time since they got divorced, and there's someone who got through their time in the hospital with the Switch in their hands, and they were playing our game, and so all of that is that it can carry people through hardships. It carries extra meaning for us as entertainers, for sure.
That is awesome. So if people want to find more about you, about Sabotage and Sea of Stars, where would be the best place to do so?
For sure, our Discord is where people like to hang out, and the whole dev team is there, and you can ask questions, so discord.gg/Sabotage Studio, and also there's a seaofstarsgames.co for all information about the game and everything upcoming. And if you want to hit me up on Twitter, I'm at Sabotoy, SABOTOY. Happy to, DMs are open. Happy to take any questions or help other indies or whatever. So always a pleasure.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for being here and giving us your time and talking about your experience and your knowledge. I really appreciate it, Thierry.
Yeah, it was super fun. Thanks for the chat, Rodrigo.
Awesome. So this has been the last episode of the Creative Hustler Show. If you like it, please click the like button below, and also subscribe to our channel. Or if you're listening through the podcast, please subscribe to our podcast, so that way you will be notified when the next interview is up. Until next time,